Thank you, Steve. Thank you so much for the introduction. I hope you can see my screen. Everything all right?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. So what I will talk about in the next 10 minutes basically is AI in ports and applications a bit, and I think that's quite a good fit to the talks we've heard before, because we heard a lot about data and integration and how these things work together. And at the end of the day, if we want to talk about deriving further future informations or further insights or creating learning systems, it's always about how do we actually work and how do we manage our data. And I think what we heard before and what's really interesting is we are moving further and further towards some kind of digitalized world with data being stored for basically more and more physical objects. And I think this sounds a bit ahead, but it is happening. We see that there are beautiful products around for integration of systems, actually, for integration of data flows. And then we see that manufacturers are moving more into putting more sensors on equipment, getting more data. And this actually enables also, in the beginning, the storage of data, creating the right architectures. And this is basically the foundation for anything that creates data-driven insights, for anything regarding applications of AI or so on. It's a solid, good foundation of data itself. And as long as basically this foundation is not made, there's very little to talk about with AI or machine learning applications. And I personally think that the more data we store and the more the availability is there and the more the technology evolves, we'll see more applications of machine learning around the ports actually in this world. So quite interesting to get these insights first in the other talks about what is actually happening on the side of integration of monitoring of data, of applying new sensors. And maybe if we talk, that relates a bit to the question we had before. It's about when we look at it actually, then the question is, there seem to be quite some significant benefits of applications of AI and ML in different industries and different parts. And the question is, why don't we see it basically evolve faster in our own industry? And maybe this also gives a bit of an answer to this question, not taking into account the legal standpoint, but in total, what is there, what is hindering. And I think if you want some kind of machine learning, data-driven decisions, these things, you first of all have some kind of strategic fit. It has to be set within the companies you work with that is a goal to work towards these things. And you have to have a clear picture where you want to go, and you have to have the right data. If you don't have these things, basically, then it's very hard, I think, to at all get started in this whole area of bringing machine learning to ports to be more data driven, because you have to have the right foundation. And then there's always a thing that's always, when we talk about automation, there's always fear of job replacement. And what I also think is we might have some challenges with the understanding of possibilities and shortcomings of technology. So, for example, if you start a project that you have very high aspirations on, and it fails to deliver on that level because, for example, data was not available in the right quality or right amount, that's probably a hindrance for future projects that you actually start or try to start. So I think expectation management is extremely important when we look at the projects we're talking about what's realistic and what are showstoppers if you do something like that. And then it's where you are so very early in this process still, while we see the first applications. I think it's also important to understand what can you actually do, and what typical applications that we have for artificial intelligence, for example, machine learning ports. And we always look at two things. The one thing is we want to automatize processes. So we have, for example, an automated recognition of numbers on containers, or we have an automated recognition of damages or something else. And the second one that is very interesting is we now have a lot of data and we want to generate more insights or make better predictions. And that's pretty much the second phase where you could go in if we talk about AI applications. And then if you want to know where they actually are, and I think this is very important part, is you have to take a look at what is currently maybe not going so well, and where am I basically at the border of what current technology can solve. That's what I would call these customer pains. And if you find these challenges that are not so easily solved today, but can be solved using the new technology, using machine learning, using something around it, then you actually have an application that you can create some value for. And not only basically, find something, but you have to actually see we have one problem on our operations side. Not solving it has a cost impact. If we solved it, we can create a higher quality of our work. We can have more efficient processes, and this is basically the point where we go in. And then I think it's interesting to take a look at where can you apply such things in general in ports. And when we look just around Hamburg, basically just giving a feeling where things are currently happening around this, it's basically, we look at, for example, the area of predictive maintenance key cranes, and what we see is there are applications with and I think we know it from buildings, for example, drone-based inspections, or we gather data from cranes to take a look at the ropes of cranes and to enhance the quality, or we have some predictions and help optimize inventories. And then we have one big part basically that's always around yard optimization. I think if you look at a container terminal, the yard and how it is operated has quite a significant cost impact. And what we did, for example, here in the port of Hamburg is predict which delivery mode containers take for being brought out of the port, or how long they will stay in the port actually. This helps to optimize stacking decisions. And if you can optimize stacking decisions, you have further shuttle moves, you have lower truck turnaround time, which actually helps to deliver some cost benefits at the end of the day. Same applies with train cranes or with OCR gates. And I think we are just at the beginning of all these things happening here in the ports. It's quite an evolving topic, but it's yet not fully optimized. For example, what additional efficiencies can you derive from the OCR image? And last but not least, there's also some benefits that can be derived from the automation of administrative work. So if you can use learning technologies to estimate things better or to recognize things, you have efficiency potentials also in what I would say indirect labor, so not directly in operations, but around administrative buildings. And the interesting thing is I think we have a new technology that evolves, and we've seen it a few times in other areas, for example, like with the phone itself or with the mobile phone that evolved over time. And if you told us in the beginning that it would be possible to hire a Uber via the mobile phone just using an app, we would probably looked a bit doubtful. And I think that around these technologies, there's also potentials that we currently just don't fully see, and we also might not have the data basically. So what is the summary and key takeaways? So if you want to do anything in the area of machine learning, I think it's very important to have a good data architecture, to store the right data and to be really careful, not only storing the data you need for your day-to-day operations, but start storing like everything you can store, because you might not know how you can use it in the future. Then you have to have a clear strategy around these things. And what I also think is very important to combine what I would say domain knowledge and technology knowledge. The things that I saw to now that were really successful were always really good collaborations between people with in-depth operation and knowledge talking to the right people with technology knowledge. Thank you very much.